Welcome to the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast, presented by the Beef Cattle Research Council. The most popular content from beefresearch.ca, available on the go. Before we get into today's episode, a quick message from the BCRC. Why subscribe to the BCRC's email lists? Beefresearch.ca is full of practical resources for beef producers, veterinary teams, researchers, and students. Customized subscription options are available to keep you updated on new resources, current research, and monthly newsletters. You can subscribe by clicking the Notify Me button on beefresearch.ca. Already a subscriber? Click the Update Your Preferences at the bottom of one of our emails to be sure you're signed up to the latest options that meet your needs. This episode is titled Hooves Not Harrows, Harnessing Cow Power to Rejuvenate Forages.
As forage stands age, the composition of plant species within that stand is going to shift, and the production typically declines over time. There are many different methods of rejuvenating or renovating forage stands, and strategies vary in intensity, effectiveness, and cost. Now, breaking old stands and reseeding forages, while effective, is among the most expensive rejuvenation methods. Therefore, more and more Canadian beef producers are opting to improve their older, tame pastures and reseed legumes using a key resource they already have on hand, which is their cattle herd. Aaron Nurbis with Nurbis Brothers Angus says that they've taken this approach on their operation to improve older pastures. They try to use grazing as much as possible to take the mechanical approach or component out of it. Aaron and his family operate a multi-generational purebred and commercial Angus cow-calf operation located near Russell, Manitoba. On their operation, they have no cover crops or annual species, and rely solely on perennial forages. Their goal is to try and graze as long as they can each season and minimize the number of months they have cattle on winter feed, which is typically provided through bale grazing. Aaron says that they plan out their grazing in the spring, moving cattle every 2 to 5 days. Any fields that are grazed by about June 15th or earlier, they won't return to graze those fields again for that growing season, but rather they stockpile that forage and graze those fields after freeze up or even waiting until the following spring. This strategy of saving forage to use in the winter as stockpiled grazing is a significant part of their operations management. But Aaron does admit that their main goal with this strategy has not been reseeding forages. Using stockpile forages has its own benefits due to such things as efficiency in feeding, but reseeding legumes is definitely a side benefit, Aaron explains, and adds that they haven't renovated a forage stand in over 10 years. Going forward, their plan is to probably never rip up and renovate in the traditional way, but rather continue to rely on their cattle as an alternative to the traditional break and reseed methods, which are costly. On their operation, Aaron and his family work with a variety of different land types, as well as different forage species compositions. But Aaron believes that grazing stockpiled forages can work to reseed almost any species. He explains that anything that hits maturity that has viable seeds in the seed head that gets smashed or trampled into the ground will become some new seedling. And they've seen an increase on their farm in legumes in particular. When cattle are grazing mature alfalfa, they trample and shake all those seeds down. You'll see it in grasses too, such as meadow brome or other brome species. If you decide to leave forage residue in a field and graze cattle on that field, they are going to trample it. Over the years, they've seen improvements not only in forage production, but also in soil quality and fertility. On their operation, they examine the manure to look for forage seeds that pass through the animal's digestive system, and also use that as an in-field estimate of whether their herd is getting enough quality forage when they are grazing stockpiled pastures. Aaron explains that if the manure is nice and loose and the right color of brown, you know that they're getting enough. And adds that if the manure is stacked up a bit, that may be an indication that the cows are lacking a bit of protein and overall nutrition. It is important to note that this visual estimating technique is not as accurate as a feed analysis. Forage and feed testing allow producers to get a more accurate read on forage quality. Aaron and his family have tried other experimental methods of seeding legumes, which have included broadcast seeding using an airplane, and this method has shown a lot of promise. Another strategy is mixing forage seeds in a loose mineral and providing that to the cattle. Now, the idea behind this strategy is that the cattle consume the forage seed, which passes through their digestive system and is excreted in the manure on the other end, where it can then germinate and grow. They've seen mixed results with this approach, as the seeds tend to accumulate in small little clusters. Managing rotational grazing and using stockpile forages has enabled the Nerbus family to get more days of grazing every year out of the same land base, all while rejuvenating older forage stands. That's a key indicator that the land is healthier and forage production is increasing, Aaron says. The goal is to try and optimize continuous improvement on the land over time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find all relevant links and information at beefresearch.ca or in the show notes. The Beef Cattle Research Council is funded by the Canadian Beef Cattle Checkoff and strives for excellence in the production of Canadian beef, cattle, and forage through research, innovation, and extension. Tune in every Tuesday as the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast delivers straightforward insights, expert information, and a wealth of practical knowledge for Canadian beef producers. Subscribe now.